This map highlights the 25 nations that currently operate under federal political systems. While they make up a small minority of the world's 193 countries, the citizens living inside these specific borders account for 40% of the global population. The appeal of this structure lies in how it distributes authority. In a unitary state, a single central government holds absolute power, issuing commands directly downward to provincial or local offices. A federal system divides that power. A central authority manages broad national interests, while constituent regional governments manage their own jurisdictions simultaneously. India applies this logic to a population that officially recognizes over 1,300 distinct mother tongues. Governing this level of demographic and cultural density from a single central point presents an extreme challenge to traditional state engineering. To maintain stability across such a diverse subcontinent, standard governance models are insufficient. The Indian state required a highly engineered, deliberately customized constitutional architecture. Federations generally form in one of two ways. The first is a coming-together model, like the United States or Switzerland, where independent entities pool their sovereignty to increase collective security. India utilizes the holding-together model. Here, a massive existing country divides its power internally between a national government and constituent states. In this setup, constituent units rarely hold equal power. The national government deliberately retains an outsized share of authority. This imbalance is a calculated design choice. Keeping the national core slightly heavier than the regional states provides the structural gravity necessary to maintain unity across the rest of the system. To prevent administrative collisions, the Indian Constitution maps out daily governance using 3 distinct legal lists. This document explicitly divides legislative territory. The Union List contains subjects of national importance, like defense, foreign affairs, and currency, where only the central government can make laws. The State List grants state governments exclusive control over local administration, such as policing, commerce, and agriculture within their borders. The third column is the Concurrent List, covering shared interests like education and trade unions. Both tiers can legislate here. However, the Constitution includes a hard-coded conflict resolution protocol. If a state law and a central law clash, the union government's legislation prevails. Of course, writing the rules down doesn't stop disagreements over where these jurisdictional lines actually fall in reality. When disputes over the division of power arise, the High Courts and the Supreme Court act as the ultimate institutional umpire. By preemptively categorizing almost every conceivable government action into these lists, the architecture stops regional friction from escalating into constitutional gridlock. Because India operates on the holding together model, the states within the Union do not possess identical levels of constitutional authority. Specific regions, like Nagaland or Arunachal Pradesh, hold asymmetric constitutional powers. These special provisions grant them elevated autonomy, specifically designed to protect indigenous land rights, preserve distinct cultural practices, and manage local government employment. On the opposite end of the spectrum are union territories. These are geographic areas too small to operate as independent states, yet impossible to merge with neighboring regions. They hold almost no autonomous power and are administered directly by the central government. Looking at this map, you can see how this internal architecture has been modified since 1947. To act as a pressure release valve for regional tensions, the national government redrew state boundaries based entirely on the linguistic demographics of the local populations.
The data table here outlines the scale of that linguistic complexity. It lists the 22 scheduled languages officially recognized by the Constitution. Because Hindi is the mother tongue of only about 40% of Indians, the state avoids elevating any single language to a mandatory national status. While some leaders initially feared that linguistic states would fracture the country, these divisions actually integrated regional identities into the national structure. Experience shows this made administration easier and strengthened overall unity. Dividing power between a capital city and a state government is effective until you realize that individual Indian states, like Uttar Pradesh or Maharashtra, have larger populations than most independent European countries. A two-tier system cannot efficiently govern at that density. In 1992, the Constitution was amended to mandate a massive third tier of local governance.
This moved village and municipal administration from a delegated privilege to a constitutionally guaranteed right. This diagram illustrates the resulting rural structure, known as Panchayati Raj. It builds upward from the Gram Panchayat at the village level, grouping them into samitis, which then form the Zilla Parishad at the district level. To enforce this restructuring, the amendment introduced strict legal mandates. It required independent state election commissions, mandated regular local voting, and explicitly reserved at least 1/3 of all elected positions for women. This translates into millions of elected representatives operating at the grassroots level. A Gram Sabha, comprising all adult voters in a given village, meets directly to review the performance and approve the budgets of their local council. India's localized restructuring aligns with a broader global push toward participatory democracy. For instance, Porto Alegre in Brazil launched a massive initiative, dividing the city into sectors where residents directly debate and shape the municipal budget. Decentralization on this scale requires the forced redistribution of democratic decision-making power directly to the population. A constitution is a legal blueprint. How federalism functions in reality depends on the volatile math of electoral politics. Prior to the 1990s, a single national party frequently dominated both the central government and most state legislatures. During this era, the center routinely used its constitutional authority to dismiss rival state governments, overriding the federal design. That top-down dynamic broke as regional political parties gained electoral traction. Without a single party holding a clear majority in parliament, national leaders were forced to form alliances with distinct, localized factions to form a government. Because the central government's survival now depended on the continued support of these regional coalition partners, national leaders were structurally forced to respect state autonomy. The actual balance of federal power is ultimately dictated by electoral mathematics and the requirements of political survival. The resulting architecture is a three-tiered stack: a dominant national union, asymmetric and linguistically distinct states, and a massive foundational base of local councils. This entire mechanism exists to solve a single problem: maintaining a unified national identity while accommodating intense regional and cultural differences. The Indian Constitution provides an active framework designed specifically for continuous political negotiation between these different tiers of authority. Building a functional federation for 1 billion people requires brilliant structural engineering. But its ultimate success depends entirely on the mutual trust and democratic culture of the citizens living inside it.